If you know where Camille is, if you have her and you're not sure what to do or where to go and you're frightened, we're here to help you.
Having your child snatched out from the safety of their yard by a stranger is every mother's very worst nightmare. While no parent wants to imagine it ever happening to their child, it truly is a devastating reality that far too many children have experienced. In this shocking case, an adorable little girl was playing outside her family's house when she was approached by not just one, but two monsters. What happened next is unbelievably shocking and horrifying. The shockingly tragic case of Camille McKinney began on October 12, 2019 in Birmingham, Alabama. That day, Camille, a lively and sweet 3-year-old nicknamed Cupcake, was with her mom, April Thomas. They were visiting family at the Tom Brown Village apartment complex. Camille and her older brother were outside playing with their cousins as the sun began to set. April was chatting with her cousin inside, wrapping up the visit, when eventually her son returned to the house. But Camille was no longer with him. All he told his mom was that Camille had been outside, but she wasn't anymore. Immediately, April had a horrible, sinking feeling that something awful had happened to her precious little daughter. As she and other family members rushed outside to investigate, they began talking with neighborhood children to see if any of them might have noticed Camille wandering off. One young boy ended up telling them that he saw what happened and painted a terrifying picture. The 11-year-old boy said that he saw a man he didn't recognize drive by in a dark SUV. The man approached Camille and lured her close to his vehicle by promising her candy. In mere seconds, Camille had been snatched up and pulled inside the vehicle, and the man drove off with her.
Emotions just running high tonight as the search continues for this 3-year-old little girl, Camille McKinney.
It was any mother's worst nightmare. Other than the description of the vehicle the man was driving, there was little information to go off of. They had no idea who the man was, where he could have taken Camille, or what he planned to do with her. The shocking news of Camille's abduction spread like wildfire. The entire Birmingham community was on edge and desperate for answers. Parents felt like they couldn't let their kids play outside because the kidnapper was still out there. Nobody knew when or where he may decide to strike again. The cops, community members, and even the FBI joined forces to search for Camille. Flyers went up, social media posts circulated, and people combed through the area looking for any sign of the little girl. Every mother felt for April Thomas as she desperately held on to hope that her beloved daughter would be found. But it wasn't just a local story. The case touched the hearts of people everywhere, all throughout the country and beyond. Camille was just so lovable. Her big smile and her missing persons photos, her innocence, it all made the whole situation all the more painful. As the days passed, Birmingham united like never before. Vigils were held, strangers prayed together, parents hugged their kids a little tighter. Law enforcement publicly shared a short CCTV video that captured the moment that Camille was abducted. The video would later circulate on the local news. It was sadly too dark and too far away to make out much detail, except for the moment that a man seemed to approach two children and eventually lure Camille away from the area where she was playing outside of her family's home.
One male comes up and he sees the little children and he goes on with them. This is the male we're looking for. There are two males that appear in the video where the two children are playing. The first male will walk completely by. He looks at them, and it's the second male that comes up and engages the children.
The cops were basically working around the clock, and the FBI was helping them to piece together evidence. But nothing seemed to be happening quickly enough for all of those who were desperately seeking answers. On one particular afternoon, there was a flurry of law enforcement activity at a Birmingham apartment complex, and it had people thinking that little Camille had possibly been found. Unfortunately, that was not the case.
They had a lot of people thinking that she'd been found. Officers in helmets and other tactical gear at the scene, but at the end of it all, no sign of Camille. The desperate search to bring her home continues right now, and new tonight, they are begging for the kidnapper to bring her back safely.
Chief Patrick Smith of the Birmingham Law Enforcement Department went on television and desperately pleaded for whoever had taken Camille to simply bring her back. He hoped that if she was still alive and her captor was possibly afraid of getting caught, this message would assure them that they could return her without facing additional legal trouble.
I wanted to reach out to just one individual. If you know where Camille is, if you have her and you're not sure what to do, I want to just talk to you for 1 second. I want to give you safe passage is the way to go. Please bring her to one of our fire stations, police station, a hospital. If you don't know what to do or where to go and you're frightened, we're here to help you.
Chief Smith made it clear that his #1 goal above all else was to reunite Camille with her family. Everything else, including bringing the person who took her to justice, was second to that. However, a whopping $20,000 reward was also posted in hopes that someone who might know something about Camille's abduction would consider coming forward.
To help do that, you've got a reward now totaling $20,000 for information leading to an arrest and the conviction in this child's disappearance. And they remind you, you can stay anonymous.
After what must have seemed like ages, there was finally a new development in the case. A tip from a member of the community would end up leading law enforcement to 2 people who they considered potential suspects in Camille's disappearance. They were Patrick Stallworth and Derek Brown, and they were a couple with a very troubled past. Stallworth had been in legal trouble before for possessing illegal images on his computer. Meanwhile, Brown had a history of kidnapping her own children due to custody disputes with their father. Because both of these people were known to have a criminal history involving young children and were known to be around the area where Camille was kidnapped, law enforcement considered them to be suspects, but they didn't have any direct evidence specifically linking them to the case, so the investigation continued. For 10 agonizing days, the community clung to hope. Every small tip gave people a flicker of belief that Camille would be found safe. But on October 22nd, a tip about a dumpster near the suspect's apartment sent officers scrambling. The FBI worked through the trash hoping for clues. It was one of the most harrowing moments of the case. Then, amidst the piles of garbage, an agent saw what looked like a doll, but it wasn't. It was Camille.
Alabama police believe they have found the remains of 3-year-old Camille Cupcake McKinney. Camille disappeared from a birthday party at a local public housing community 10 days ago. According to authorities, she was seen playing with a toddler in this surveillance video before they followed a man who had stopped to talk to them. At a press conference Tuesday night, officials say they found the remains of a child in a Birmingham dumpster, which they believe to be Camille.
It was the ending that everyone had been hoping to avoid. After all the desperate searching and all the people who had dedicated all the hours of their time in hopes of bringing this little girl home safe, now they were met with this horrific reality. The community's hope was shattered in that instant. Little Camille's body had been discarded in that dumpster like trash. Only a true monster could do something so horrific and disrespectful to an innocent little girl. The autopsy would later reveal the unthinkable. Camille had been drugged and suffocated. Whoever was responsible had taken her life the same day that she disappeared. If there was even the faintest of silver linings that came with the results of the autopsy, it was that Camille likely didn't suffer for long. One of the biggest fears of law enforcement was that she was being abused continuously during those many days that she had been missing. But still, the relief of at least knowing what happened to Camille did little to comfort her loved ones. Thankfully, not long after the discovery of Camille's remains, it was announced that both Stallworth and Brown had been arrested and charged in connection to her murder.
The wheels of justice are starting to turn in the kidnapping and murder of 3-year-old Camille McKinney. Good evening, I'm Sherry Jackson.
I'm Jack Royer. The Jefferson County DA announced the charges today for Patrick Stallworth and Derek Brown. Now both are in the Jefferson County Jail.
When Stallworth arrived at the county jail after the announcement that he had been charged with Camille's murder, the press was there waiting for him and demanded answers. answers. He stayed quiet as he was led out of a van and into the building by officers.
Stallworth, did you do it?
With little to say and a quick glance at our cameras,
What message do you have for Cupcake's family?
Patrick Devon Stallworth was taken into custody at Jefferson County Jail and charged with capital murder, along with Derek Arisha Brown in the death of Camille McKinney, known as Cupcake, Thursday night.
Both Stallworth and Brown will be transported to the Jefferson County Jail and held on a no bond.
In addition to the murder, both Stallworth and Brown were also charged with kidnapping as well as conspiracy to commit kidnapping of a minor. When they were first arraigned, they both pleaded not guilty. In the wake of his arrest, Stallworth's family issued a public statement expressing their sympathy for Camille's family and sharing their disgust that a member of their family could allegedly be involved in committing such an evil act.
Patrick was reared in a family with strong values. The actions he is alleged to have done in no way reflect who we are as a family. We ask that our family not be judged by the actions of one individual. We abhor senseless violence, and even more so, we condemn acts of violence against defenseless children. We will continue to pray for the McKinney family. For us, this too is a tragedy." End quote.
Our thoughts and prayers continue to be with the family as they grieve the loss of Camille.
Meanwhile, more information was revealed about Brown's violent and shocking past, including an incident when she went to a foster care home with a firearm in an attempt to take her children back.
In 2018, Brown was charged with 3 counts of first-degree kidnapping after she took her 3 children from a foster home at gunpoint after she lost custody of them. Stallworth previously pleaded guilty to possession of marijuana in 2004 and spent 30 days in jail.
In the beginning, law enforcement stayed pretty tight-lipped when it came to revealing the specific evidence that they had connecting both Brown and Stallworth to the case. But it was later revealed that Stallworth not only had a known history of trying to lure children into his vehicle using candy, but that he also had a lot of knowledge of and possessed the same drug that was found in Camille's system. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. Phone records and other digital evidence would also link him to the scene of the crime. The evidence that prosecutors had against Stallworth was nothing short of disturbing and chilling.
For 2.5 hours, homicide detective Jonathan Ross revealed more about Camille Cupcake McKinney's final moments. McKinney was found in a dumpster on October 22nd, 10 days after being kidnapped from a birthday party. Patrick Stallworth was charged with her death, and today Ross explained why. FBI phone tracking records put Stallworth at the scene of the kidnapping on October 12th. Ross testified how Stallworth admitted to seeing McKinney in his girlfriend Derek Brown's apartment.
Stallworth also confessed that his girlfriend, Derek Brown, had told him that she wanted to keep Camille and didn't care that she was someone else's child. She reportedly encouraged him to follow through with the kidnapping as well as the horrific crimes that followed. But according to Stallworth, it was Derek Brown who committed the actual murder with her own bare hands.
The detective claims Stallworth watched Brown place her hands over McKinney's nose and mouth before she died.
Learning the details of the crime straight from the mouth of one of the people who is allegedly responsible was shocking and disturbing. But it wasn't just the confession that prosecutors had that tied both Stallworth and Brown to the murder. They had crucial DNA evidence that incriminated them too.
Prosecutor Misty Reynolds pointed out that FBI analysis found the DNA of Stallworth, Brown, and McKinney on a plastic mattress cover, and that there were levels of meth and the sleeping drug trazodone in the 3-year-old's blood.
The huge amounts of evidence against Brown and Stallworth helped to assure the community that the people who were truly responsible for this heinous crime had been captured and were now off the streets. Now, all that was left was watching them go to trial and face justice. As the city of Birmingham waited for Brown and Stallworth to face trial, they came together as a community in hopes of making a positive change. Parents no longer felt safe enough to let their children play outside, even while in larger groups. Instead of doing a traditional trick-or-treat for Halloween that year, it was decided that trunk-or-treat gatherings would be held at churches and other local buildings where the children would be kept safer.
Cupcake's story is personal. The girls had playdates together.
We used to play tag.
Natea will be taking her girls to church to celebrate Halloween. She says this way her family won't have to stress over what can go wrong.
People being devilish and things being found in candy and things of that nature.
The community also did what they could to celebrate Camille's life by hanging up pink and purple bows around the city and sharing her story. Candles, stuffed animals, and cards were left outside the home where Camille was abducted.
Where is she? Where did she go?
Up there.
The Birmingham Housing Authority tells me there will be police patrolling through the Tom Brown neighborhood on Halloween. They hope to get more information on security measures in the days ahead.
There was also a beautiful celebration of life held for Camille that was attended by countless members of the community. Many of the people in attendance had never even met Camille, but they felt like they had because they had been following her story so closely.
We have Jeff Elias off there on the scene. Good morning, Jeff. I know I don't have to ask you about the mood, but I can see that there's quite a crowd that has gathered to pay their respects.
Indeed, Eunice, we have hundreds of people inside this church, and I apologize a little bit for the motorcycle noise there. There's apparently some type of escort, but there are also hundreds of people outside trying to get in. I don't think they will be. This is truly an overflow crowd and an overflow of emotions here, Eunice, as one might expect. I don't think any one of us standing around this church today failed to be moved by what we saw. The sight of a very small casket that you will see in just a few moments, but also purple balloons, flower arrangements in the shape of cupcakes, and a lot of people clutching their children ever so tightly.
Finally, in the fall of 2022, both Patrick Stallworth and Derek Brown would face trial. Stallworth went first. The defense attempted to paint Stallworth as a peaceful person who may have had his own legal troubles in the past, but would never hurt a defenseless child. They even brought out witnesses who claimed they knew Stallworth well and insisted that he was innocent. But the prosecution had a rebuttal witness whose testimony would destroy basically any hope that Stallworth had of being found innocent. This rebuttal witness was a nurse who had been working at the jail where he had been housed while awaiting trial. The nurse revealed to the court that Stallworth confessed to her that he had done horrific, unspeakable things to little Camille. These were things that he had not yet confessed to law enforcement. When the case was finally handed over to the jury, they only took 62 minutes to deliberate before making their decision.
Well, Sherry and Guy, I've been covering trials for 25 years, and today's 62-minute deliberation was one of the fastest verdicts I believe I've ever seen. Now, the jury began debating Patrick Stallworth's fate shortly before lunch today, and it reached a unanimous decision before the lunch hour was even over.
After his conviction, Stallworth was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a major victory in the fight for justice in a case that had been dragging on for years. The only thing left was for Derek Brown to also face the consequences of her sick and twisted actions. During Brown's 4-day-long trial in November of 2022, her defense team attempted to paint her as an innocent bystander in everything that happened to Camille. They said that it was her boyfriend Stallworth who was the real monster, and that while she may not have stopped him, she wasn't responsible for Camille's death. The prosecution disagreed with this take, claiming that Brown was just as much of a monster as Stallworth was.
Defense attorney Kevin Butler told the jury, "You are not here to judge her lack of action. That is not the legal reason you are here. You may loathe her for that, but you cannot find her guilty for that." Prosecutors countered by highlighting numerous witnesses, security videos, and phone records proving Brown was actively involved in McKinney's disappearance. Lead prosecutor Lloyd Peoples wrapped up his closing argument by saying, "Cupcake McKinney did not find a hand of safety. She found a hand that covered her nose and mouth. She found evil. She did not find one monster, she found two."
When the jury received the case in Brown's trial, it would yet again be a shockingly quick deliberation period before they came to a unanimous decision about her fate. This time, it was only about an hour and 16 minutes before they reached their verdict and found Brown guilty of Camille's kidnapping. She too was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This meant that there would finally be some closure in the case that had been haunting the community of Birmingham for years.
We didn't want to celebrate after the Stallworth verdict because the job wasn't done. It wasn't done until we got both defendants. Today we got both defendants.
The prosecutor, who worked tirelessly to get both Stallworth and Brown convicted, said that he hoped the convictions and severe sentences of these two monsters would send a powerful message to anyone in the community who had ever considered preying on children. If you dare to prey upon the most innocent and defenseless members of society, you will pay the price, and it could mean spending the rest of your life behind bars.
When you harm the most vulnerable of victims, we're going to put resources after it, and we're going to find you, and and we're going to bring you to justice.
Ahead of each one of their sentencings, Brown and Stallworth both reportedly expressed remorse for what they had done and asked for forgiveness from Camille's family. That forgiveness is something that Camille's mother said she would never be able to give them. They had taken everything from her. In a written statement that was shared with the courtroom, Camille's mother said, "You stole from me. You stole from Cupcake. You robbed her from her life. And no punishment is enough for what you did." The legal trouble that both Stallworth and Brown are facing is not over yet. While they were both convicted of federal charges connected to Camille's kidnapping, they will still have to face state charges for Camille's murder. If they are convicted of her murder, it is possible that they both could end up facing the death penalty. Camille McKinney's story is one of unbelievable tragedy and of a young life being cut short far too soon. But it is also the story of a community coming together to try to make things safer for children everywhere and prevent anything like this from happening again. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below.